We chose the prompt, revisit your initial thoughts on the character Beloved. Be sure to provide a nod to all her possible identities. Ultimately, it may be less important who she is than how she functions in the novel and what impact.
I think that it is clear that Beloved is the baby that Setha had to kill in order to spare her from a life of torture and slavery. A way that Beloved is characterized is that she always has another agenda that we as readers are not aware of, and she is often unpredictable. I think that Beloved was inserted back into Setha and Denver's lives to cause tragedy and to drag them down and take away the lives that they have worked for. Beloved never really grasps an understanding of the world because of the fact that she was reborn into it. I think that because of this, her feelings of anger and sadness continue to get the best of her as she began to drain the life from Setha and put the family in danger. It is still unclear as to where Beloved came from and how she's alive and with the characters, but we see a sense of Beloved's disobedience when Denver suspects that Beloved is the one who choked her mother. I saw your face. You made her choke. I didn't do it. You told me you loved her. I fixed it, didn't I? Didn't I fix her neck? After you choked her neck. I kissed her neck. I didn't choke it. The circle of iron choked it. I saw you. Denver grabbed Beloved's arm. Chapter 9. Beloved claims to love Setha and care about her, but she still continues to put Setha's life at risk. She continues to take advantage of Setha and take Setha's life for the life that she missed out on. Beloved doesn't understand that what Setha did was for her. Beloved always wants to be around her and to please her. Don't let ma'am know where you are. Please, you hear? Don't tell me what to do. Don't you ever, never tell me what to do. But I am on your side, Beloved. She's the one. She's the one I need. You can go, but she is the one I have to have. Chapter 8. This shows that Beloved's obsession with Setha is the only thing that matters to her. She doesn't care about Denver or anyone besides Setha. I believe that this obsession will continue to lead to tragedy.
Um, I agree with what you said. I think that Beloved's like in unpredictable unpredictability is kind of what makes her like so intriguing, because you never know like what she's gonna do or how her personality or like incarnation is gonna be next. And I think that's why Sethi, her mother, is so like um obligated to her almost.
Yeah, I feel like Sethi and Beloved's like deep bond will kind of lead to tragedy. And then also I feel like it can also point back to that Beloved is a reincarnation of Crawling Already Girl, because they wouldn't have such like a deep bond, and Sethi wouldn't be so obsessed with Beloved and Beloved so obsessed with Sethi um if they hadn't formed a bond in perhaps like a past life. Um, and I feel like one of the reasons Sethi uh, has such a hyperfixation of like pleasing Beloved, and why she doesn't discipline Beloved when Beloved acts out, is probably because of her remorse for what she did to Crawling Already Girl. And she just knows that it's her reincarnated baby. And then another reason, another way that points back to Beloved being a reincarnation of Crawling Already Girl, is that when Paul D moved into 124, the ghost of Beloved disappeared, and it was because because Paul D overshadowed her. However, when the human form of Beloved came back into 124, she seemed to have a negative impact on Paul D. It seemed as if he was a rag doll, the way that she moved him, and Paul D didn't know how to stop it because it looked like he was moving himself, from page 134. However, she also seduced Paul D and opened up his tobacco tin of a heart. And I feel like that also created a rift between Sethi and Paul D. And it was her way of coming back to haunt 124 again and punish Sethi for what she did to her. Yeah.
I agree with what you're saying about the importance of 124 because um of everything that happened and how Sethi's like two other kids left because of everything happening at 124. And it just makes a lot of sense that Beloved would want to haunt the house, especially because of her brutal murder.
To add on, I think like the ups and downs Beloved went through throughout the book with Paul D and her mother and her other family members and other people in the story. Like as I said before, like that's what makes her so intriguing. But towards the end of the book, all of that kind of comes to like an end, and she's kind of seen as like this normal, just deceased human memory that slowly fades. A quote from the book at the very end is, "It took longer for those who had spoken to her, lived with her, fallen in love with her, to forget until they realized they couldn't remember or repeat a single thing she said, and began to believe that, other than what they themselves were thinking, she hadn't said anything at all. So in the end, they forgot her too." Um, this quote just really represents like how she's just a normal human memory, and like maybe all of the things that all her family members and her loved ones had been experiencing was just like a way of coping, like, or PTSD, almost like hallucinations. And yeah, her memory is strong with those who love her, and as these characters experience new people, new as life continues on, new experiences, her memory starts to fade, and she no longer has this family to haunt because they're forgetting her. And as they forget her, she's becoming less and less strong until she doesn't exist in their lives anymore.
I think that Beloved could definitely be representing like PTSD for like Sethi and Denver, but I think that there was definitely like a real person behind that, because if Paul D was able to see her and talk to her, even though like he didn't even know about Beloved and like what Sethi had to do to her to like save her. So I definitely think that you have a point there with the PTSD thing.
Okay, so with the talk of PTSD and forgotten stories, I believe that Beloved is a personification of like the ghost of slavery and the horrors of slavery. From the coda of Beloved, it really focuses in on that. Like there's a loneliness that can be rocked. Arms crossed, knees drawn, holding on. This motion, unlike a ship's, smooths and contains the rocker. It's an inside kind, wrapped tight like skin. There's a loneliness that roams, no rocking can hold it. It is alive on its own, a dry and spreading thing that makes the sound of one's feet going seem to come far from a far place. Everybody knew what she was called, but nobody anywhere knew her name. Disremembered and unaccounted for, she cannot be lost because no one is looking for her. And even if they were, how can they call her if they don't know her name? Although she has a claim, she is not claimed. In the place where long grass opens, the girl who waited to be loved and cry shame erupts into her separate parts to make it easy for the chewing laughter to swallow her away. It was not a story to pass on. They forgot her like a bad dream. After they made up their tales, shaped and decorated them, those that saw her that day on the porch quickly and deliberately forgot her. It took longer for those who had spoken to her, lived with her, fallen in love with her, to forget until they realized that they couldn't on remember or repeat a single thing that she said, and begin to believe that other than what they themselves were thinking, they she hadn't said anything at all. So in the end, they forgot her too. Remembering seemed unwise. They never knew where or why she crouched, or whose was the underwater face she needed like that. Where the memory of the smile under her chin might have been and was not. A latched and lichen attached its apple green bloom to the metal. What made her think her fingernails could open locks the rain rained on? it was not a story to pass on. And the coda keeps on continuing stuff like that until it goes, it's not a story to pass on, it's not a story to pass on. And then it ends with beloved, period. And especially with the line, they forgot her like a bad dream, and it was not a story to pass on. The book Beloved was actually banned in a few states because of white students having nightmares due to seeing how brutal slavery was. And the motif of it was not a story to pass on alludes to the way that slavery is kind of censored from society, with the brutal details of it not being talked about, and how people don't really want to face the fact, white people don't want to face the fact that
Definitely Black history has been watered down and has been kind of, I'm not exactly sure the word, but it's been formed to appeal to white people rather than to teach the actual history. Like one example I'm thinking of right now is the story of Claudette Colvin, who did what Rosa Parks did, but that was before her. And they chose Rosa Parks to still be like the famous spokesperson. Like she kind of forged the civil rights movement because Claudette Colvin was pregnant and a teenager, and she just didn't fit like a very appealing look that would appeal to white people. And yeah, I feel like instead of watering it down, for white people, we have yet to teach the actual Black experience and the actual brutality they've experienced all throughout American history.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that this novel should actually, like, people should actually make like an effort to read it and an effort to like share this brutal experience of slavery with their children, because when people realize what happened and that actual human beings had to go through this experience, that will help history not repeat itself. Because even now, like, Black people do face like racism like every single day, and I think it's really important to share these stories so history keeps moving forwards instead of moving backwards.
I 100% agree. I think that it's important to like read this book as well as like other banned books in order to like grow your understanding of the world and like how things were and how they should never be again. Even like now, there's always going to be like discrimination and like racism in our world, and it's important to like remember this, like this book specifically and like other books, and like not let it happen again.